The ball is on the 1 yard line near the end of a close football game. Without hesitation, the running back charges into the center of the defense to get the final precious yard. A middle linebacker steps into the hole and collides helmet to helmet with the running back. The running back stumbles back to the huddle. He sees bright lights and is confused after the hit. He stays in the game, not willing to lose or seem weak. I have participated in football for 8 years and plan on playing in college. I have considered the issue of brain injuries in football to be important. Over the past semester, I have researched scholarly articles on the subject as well as interviewed players who experience concussions. The issue of brain injuries in football is relevant throughout society. Many people have played or will play the sport. Many people will also have children who will play the sport. My research was conducted when the issue of concussions in football was national news. Increased knowledge about concussions and chronic traumatic encephalopathy raised questions about football safety and prompted changes in football. But to protect players, more must be done. Concussions and chronic traumatic encephalopathy are dangerous injuries in football which have caused several changes to the sport. First, football's macho mentality leads to unnecessary brain injuries. In a personal interview on February 27, 2014, Christian Clave, a South Winneshiek football player who suffered a concussion, said he didn't want to look weak and wanted to keep playing for the team. Derek Pashusta, another injured South Winneshiek player, had a similar answer in his interview on February 27, 2014. He said he didn't want to let his team down, so he stayed in the game. The macho mentality and pressure put on players by teammates are problems which leads to some people playing while concussed. According to Solitaroff's 2013 article in Rolling Stone magazine, Eric Pelly was 18 when he experienced repeat concussions while playing rugby and was forced to go to the hospital. His recovery was quick and he was out of the hospital in a couple days. However, Pelly died 10 days after his repeat concussions due to a massive brain swell. This is an example of second impact syndrome. According to Johnson's 2012 Journal of School Health article, second impact syndrome is a rare neurological condition involving catastrophic diffuse cerebral swelling and brain herniation. The mortality rate for the condition is close to 100%, and survivors are often extremely crippled. Next, the winning mentality of football also keeps players on the field when injured. In a frontline documentary called Football High from 2011, Josh Floyd, the head coach of Shiloh Christian in Arkansas, explains to reporters how the coaching staff was not going to put Garrett Harper into the game unless the score became close. Harper suffered a concussion earlier in the competition. Harper would have been put in danger of repeat concussions to win a game. The winning mentality is even more evident in the National Football League. ESPN's Justin Keim sent out a survey on January 28, 2014, which asked players if they would play in the Super Bowl with a concussion. The question was posed to 320 players, and an overwhelming 85% said they would play with a concussion. Thirdly, this problem has affected the sport in multiple ways. Kickoffs experienced a rule change in 2009 when the wedge was eliminated from the game. The wedge was blockers forming a V pattern and smashing into any defenders. A wedge kickoff resulted in a player breaking his spine and becoming paralyzed in 2007. According to Peter King's Sports Illustrated article from November 10, 2010, new rules are designed so the defensive player can't launch himself into a receiver in a way that causes the defensive player's helmet, face mask, shoulder, or forearm to forcibly strike the receiver's head. A significant step towards ensuring players' safety occurred when laws were passed which mandated careful examination before a concussed player returned to their respective sport. According to an article for World Neurosurgery written on December 1, 2010 by Dr. Ellenbogen, the Washington State Legislature passed strict laws which required a player to be cleared by a health professional trained to manage concussions. The National Football League cracked down on defensive players by punishing anyone who made an illegal hit. In Peter King's November 10, 2010 article, players insisted they would not change their violent style of play because of pressure from the league. However, the next week of games occurred with without any helmet-to-helmet hits or head injuries. Brain injuries are clearly an issue in football, but for all the actions the NFL has taken, more must be done to solve this issue. The first step to altering football's problems is increasing knowledge. Ted Johnson played football professionally for many years. Stephanie Smith, CNN's medical producer, said Johnson said he played through concussions because he, like many other National Football League athletes, did not understand the consequences. Increasing player knowledge would allow them to protect themselves. Trainers cannot identify every player with a possible injury. Coaches could detect injured players if they receive training. Head coaches may be busy strategizing during the game, but many assistant coaches could help trainers recognize players with injuries. Subsequently, fewer players would be able to conceal injuries. Football's macho and winning mentalities put players at risk by playing through injuries. The culture surrounding the game needs to adjust to change these mentalities. Coaches and trainers need to emphasize safety and assure players that leaving the game does not make someone weak. The Football High documentary discusses how Pop Warner leagues focus on teaching children the fundamentals, but the culture could change if leagues also teach children to be smart about injuries. Children under 18 are more susceptible to brain injuries, as the developing brain may be stunted following a severe blow to the head. Research has shown the developing brain may be more vulnerable to injury due to disturbances of neuronal maturation caused by brain trauma, according to Johnson's 2012 article. A radical idea originated due to the risk adolescents have for second impact syndrome and brain injuries. According to Johnson, some medical researchers advise eliminating tackle football before the age of 16. Now that you have heard about the problem and a solution, let's consider what would happen if football doesn't change. Imagine all the problems football players would face if the concussion problem is not solved. Concussions, second impact syndrome, death, chronic traumatic encephalopathy, dementia, confusion, and memory loss are all possible. If nothing changes, players will continue to experience concussions. Worst of all, some may experience repeat concussions, which often leads to death or severe disabilities. Children often under 18 are playing as healthy children, and then they experience a concussion. They can't complete their schoolwork or focus, making life more difficult. Then, if they experience a repeat concussion, life becomes even worse. Their brains begin to swell and a seizure commences. These young, lively second impact victims usually are dead seconds after the initial brain swelling. Chronic traumatic encephalopathy was diagnosed in former football players as young as 18 years old. According to the well-respected Harvard Medical Health Letter from January 10, 2010, substantial evidence connects the thousands of small head impacts in football and chronic traumatic encephalopathy. The disease is characterized by 4 stages, which have progressively worse symptoms. Players become confused, depressed, irritable, forgetful, and in some cases, suicidal. Men who used to be healthy and physically active are dying at increasingly younger ages. Some are still in college when they die with the disease. As you can see, chronic traumatic encephalopathy and concussions are problems which are being detected more often in football. Football's macho and winning mentalities lead to players putting themselves at risk for severe injuries. Changes have come to the game from kickoffs to new laws, but much needs to be done before football is truly safe. The dangers of football affect countless people in society. Many have played or will play football, and even more have or will have children who will play football. Entire teams and communities are affected when someone dies from second impact syndrome or chronic traumatic encephalopathy. A change in football's culture is the only way to prevent most concussions. Ann McKee, who researches chronic traumatic encephalopathy, hopes the game will become more of an Indy 500 and less of a demolition derby. Hopefully, with the cultural change, the running back can still charge into the center of the defense, trying to score, but he will be able to walk away with his brain as healthy as when he first stepped onto the field.